So I want to ask you, why do you think you are the way that you are? Why do you think that in the face of such loss, you can still be acting for peace in this time?
I'm also thinking about this question myself. And I think all my life prepared me for October the 7th. I was just receiving lessons all through my life. And then it was what I'm saying now, or crying, or preaching, is very natural to me. It's very easy for me. I don't need to think. It's coming intuitively.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to From the Yarra River to the Mediterranean Sea. As always, you are joined by me. My name is Hannah. I am joining you from Melbourne, also known as Nam in Australia. And you're also joined by Itai, who's in Jerusalem. Hey Itai.
Also known as Al-Quds and Yerushalayim. Lovely to be here.
Ooh, what's Al-Quds?
Al-Quds means the holy in Arabic, and that's the Arabic name for Jerusalem.
Oh, beautiful. Didn't know that. You should have done that from episode 1. Before we begin, as always, I'd like to acknowledge that I'm recording this podcast on unceded Wurundjeri land, and I would like to pay my deepest respects to elders past and present. This always was and always will be Aboriginal land. So, Itai, we had a little bit of a break. I think we had 3 weeks off.
Yeah, everyone's got to enjoy the summer down under.
Yeah, we didn't tell anyone that we were going on a break. I don't think we even knew, but we just were like, we need to take a deep breath. But we are back, so welcome back, everyone. And in the 3 weeks that we've had off, we have had lots and lots of people listening, which is really nice and really exciting. And we've had so many emails and such beautiful emails, like emails that have literally brought me to tears, especially from non-Jewish, non-Palestinian listeners. Just like, I don't know how they found this podcast, but yeah, I don't think we really realized who our audience would be. Like, we had our target audience, but I don't think we realized that there would be so many other people that would listen and get something out of it. And it's been like super humbling for me and also for you, I think, Itai, that it's a real honor to be in your ears. So thank you for choosing to listen to us, and thank you for sharing, and thank you so much for writing in. Our goal of this podcast was to create a community of people who wanted peace, and through your emails and Instagram messages, I really feel like we are creating this community. So thank you. I feel much less alone than I did 3 months ago. And I hope that we just continue making this community bigger and bigger.
Yeah, and I just want to add on to what Hannah said, that the community that we have through this podcast really is across the world. It's Israelis, it's Palestinians, it's many Australians as well, and then a lot of people in all sorts of remote places all over the world. And I think, this episode that we're about to hear now with Maoz, we've called Creating Hope. And the reason we've called it that is because we are now on, day 102 of this war that seems to have no end. And we think that Maoz's message is so important to be heard now. So we really hope that you'll listen to it with an open heart, and that it will hopefully leave you thinking that maybe another way is possible. So enjoy. So it's our honor today to welcome Israeli peace activist Maoz Inon onto the podcast. Maoz lost both his beautiful parents, Bilha and Yakovi Inon, zichronam livracha, on October 7th. These were two of the first people killed on that horrific day when a Hamas rocket landed directly on their house in Moshav Nativ Ha'asara. Since October 7th, Maoz has been campaigning for peace and is here with us today on From the Yarra River to the Mediterranean Sea to share his important message with all of our listeners in Australia and beyond. Shalom ubruchim habayim, Maoz.
Thank you for having me. Thank you very much.
we want to begin by you telling us a little bit about your life before the war, especially the experience you wanted backpackers to have of this country through the Abraham Hostel.
Mm-hmm. So I'll start at the beginning, if it's okay. I was born in Kibbutz Niram, just off the Gaza Strip. My father was born in this kibbutz and my mother in a nearby kibbutz, Ruchama. And when they got married, they moved to live in my father's kibbutz, where they raised my three sisters, my young brother, and myself. When we were 14, we moved to Nativ Ha'asara community. It's just off the northern border with Gaza. And I served in the IDF. It was between 94 to 97.
What did you do in the army?
It's nothing I'm proud about or anyone can remember, or it wasn't any meaningful for no one. And actually, it was the worst time of my life. So I leave it to my psychologist and therapist. It was that horrible. And like many young Israelis, when I finished my service, I went backpacking around the world. And I started in New Zealand and Australia. Yes, I had an amazing time with Shlomit, my partner in life, for the last 28 years. We were a young couple back then, and we drove for 5 months, came back to Israel. Shlomit studied and graduated electronic engineering from Tel Aviv University. And when Shlomit graduated, we decided to go travel again. And this time, we've decided to travel in Israel first. So back in spring 2004, 20 years ago, we hiked the Israel National Trail, Shvil Israel, for 44 days hiking from Kiryat Shmona in the north to Eilat. And we had a life-changing experience, realizing that we are living in the land of the Bible, the Holy Land, where so many great figures and stories actually took place. If it's the Israeli prophet and kings and Jesus and the Holy Family and Alexander the Great and Roman Emperor and Prophet Muhammad and the Crusaders with Richard the Braveheart and the armies of Salah ad-Din and Napoleon. Amazing history and heritage, but there was not even one single word about the trail in English. You couldn't find any information whatsoever. So we wrote a very detailed blog to support foreigner independence travelers who wish or want to come and hike in Israel. And we start dreaming of a network of hostels along the trail to support those hikers. And also walking from small communities to big cities, Arab and Jewish communities. We were also amazed with the variety and of the ethnic variety here in Israel, and we saw it like it can be a really great selling point for the trail. And we saw how tourism can be a tool to empower local community, to bridge between, not just between tourists and communities, but to create a shared interest and a vision to communities. And we said, wow, this is an amazing concept, a social and a business concept, and we've decided to open a community-based guest house in Israel, and we've decided to open it in an Arab community. Because traveling in South America or even in Australia, we learn about the indigenous people of Australia, of the Aboriginal, and in New Zealand about the Maori. And here in Israel, we didn't know the difference between the Ramadan, the Eid al-Adha, and the Eid al-Fitr. 20% of all Israel citizens are Arabs, but we knew nothing about them. So we said we open a community guest house in an Arab community. First, it will be very enlightening and educational for us, but then we can also be able to create a shared interest between Jews and Arabs. Nazareth is the largest Palestinian city within Israel, and we've decided we're going to open a guest house in Nazareth. And it's in the center of the Galilee, really great location. There are many sites around it. So just moving fast forward, 19 years after opening the first guest house ever in the old city of Nazareth, before October the 7th, there were already more than 50 hospitality properties and businesses that were run in Nazareth, all owned by local community, with many coffee shops, gallery, and cultural events. And it's become very popular. It's become very popular for Jewish, especially during Christian holiday, but also during weekends. So it's become very popular for domestic tourism for Jewish people to come and sleep in the old city of Nazareth. And then I met many friends and host many Israelis during the first 5 years. And then we've decided that we want to open a big hostel in Jerusalem. And then Rali, the wife of Nitzan, one of my partners, came with the name Abraham. Abraham, the communal father for Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, known for his hospitality, and the first backpacker in the Middle East. When God is telling me, leave your father's house and go to the promised land. And this is exactly, she nailed it basically for us. Because this is our vision, to bring Abraham biblical hospitality to the 21st century. And it's become very well-known brand, not just by tourists, but also by local community. Because this is the concept of sustainable tourism, that the main beneficiary will be the local community around you. So we're doing many events, like activist meetings or cultural events and social events. So we are basically serving the community as much as we serve the tourist.
Amazing. I love that.
It's actually so interesting to hear about the amazing work you have been doing before October 7th, because obviously one of the reasons why we have invited you on this podcast is to talk about the work that you have been doing since October 7th, which I do want to get to. And I want to acknowledge that, this is a really horrible thing to have to talk about. I know that you're doing a lot of it. We've seen you a lot on the news. And I just want you to know that before we get into these questions, our hearts all really break for you. And you have so many people all around the world who have you and your family and all those who lost loved ones on October 7th in their hearts. So if it's okay, I wanted to ask you a few questions following from October 7. So the first one is that I heard you say on another interview that you had to sit Shiva without a rabbi and without a funeral. So what was that experience like?
So the Shiva we just started, we said we decided after we heard on the October the 7th afternoon that my parents' house is burned to ashes and the security officer found 2 bodies inside, that we're going to start the Shiva tomorrow. In my parents' will, they wrote that they don't want to have a grave, that they want their bodies to be burned and that will scatter the ashes in the fields of the Moshav. They said the land, we should use the land for trees, for wheat, but not for graves. The land should be used for the future, not for the past. So we said, okay, we're going to follow the will, of course, and we started the Shiva. It was the first Shiva of the war, because most or all the people waited for the announcement by the government or the official something. So we didn't. So it was the first Shiva of the war, and we had thousands of people coming, like a regular Shiva, but without prayers, with no Kaddish. We didn't, it was very important for us that there will be no one-use plastic cups in the Shiva, because my parents were very eco-minded. Environmentalists. So there was zero garbage, basically. And thousands of people came, including survivors from Niram, from Nativ Ha'asara, newly buried family, that it was the first time they were sharing the story. Now we hear it all the time, but it was the first time they shared the story with others, was on our Shiva. It was a very, very powerful Shiva. and it was more like a community condolence, because there were also, it wasn't just a personal tragedy. 1800, it's a national loss. 1,800 members from Nativ Ha'asara were murdered. So many friends from Be'eri, from Kfar Aza. So many names, friends of my parents, our friends, their parents, their children, and the numbers keep coming during the Shiva. So and I cannot forget a friend of my parents from Niram who lost his daughter, his son-in-law, and two of his grandchild, and he's calling me to pay his condolence. So what can you say? What can you say?
When the Shiva ended, 2 days later, you did an interview with BBC, with Elena, and it's an interview that I think millions of people around the world have seen. And towards the end of the interview, you say, "I'm not crying now for my parents. I'm crying for those who will lose their lives in this war." And we're interviewing you today on day 102 of the war. And I want, if you can remember how you felt during that interview, what would you say to the Maoz of 3 months ago today here in Jerusalem on day 102 of the war?
I would say, and I would start crying again, that unfortunately I was right. There were so many innocent lives that were lost during the 102 past days, that their loss is unforgivable. It can be considered unforgivable, because it won't bring. There is no way to bring comfort, and it's just a waste of life, of human being. If it's innocent people in Gaza or Israeli soldiers, and we are just deepening the cycle of death, cycle of violence, of fear, of hate, of revenge, and for no reason, just for no reason, and there is no outcome. What will be the outcome of this war? More suffering, and I was right. And unfortunately, people weren't listening to me, to my cries, from no side. So, but I think we are in a much worse situation now than we were. It was like October the 16th or something like this. Now there are 10,000 more victims, and there is you don't see the end of the war. And half of the hostages are still being kept by the Hamas, and many of them are losing their life as the days, the hours, the minutes pass by. So we are losing more people, and I think so, and it's devastating. It's devastating.
Maoz, I want to ask you a question that I've also asked the two previous guests that we've had on our podcast, who are also voices for peace and change. The reason why I asked this question is because I really think it's interesting to always be thinking about this when we're talking to people who may see things differently than we do. I'm constantly, instead of just like automatically disagreeing or automatically agreeing, I like to think, why does this person think the way they do? Instead of asking what, I ask why. So you are someone who has suffered such extreme loss in, quite a really short amount of time. It wasn't so long ago. And yet you are someone who says is not looking for revenge. You have so much compassion and empathy in the face of such devastation and loss. So I want to ask you, why do you think you are the way that you are? Why do you think that in the face of such loss, you can still be acting for peace in this time?
I'm also thinking about this question myself. And I think all my life prepared me for October the 7th. I was just receiving lessons all through my life. And then it was what I'm saying now, or crying, or preaching, is very natural to me. It's very easy for me. I don't need to think. It's coming intuitively. It's first the lessons I received from my parents. My father was a farmer. He would sow wheat in the fields every year. And one year there will be a drought, so no wheat will be harvested. The second year there will be floods, and again no wheat will grow. The third, insects, no wheat will grow. The fourth, he had a beautiful crop of wheat, but the world prices collapsed, so no one would want to buy the wheat. But at the end of each of these seasons, he will tell my sisters and my brother, next year I'm going to seed wheat again. Next year is going to be a better one. I'm going to make the fields ready. I'm going to fertilize them. I'm going to get the best seeds that I can buy. I'm going to make everything so the future will be a better one, and then I will need to hope for a better future. And he gave me the perspective, and it's within my soul. The belief, it's now becoming a religious and spiritual belief that the future is going to be a better one, but we need to work to make it happen. And my mom, she was a painter, a mandala painter, very, very talented, and she taught many groups in her studio, and she painted thousands of mandala. And she gave me only one. I received only one mandala. And what she wrote is that we can fulfill all our dreams if we'll have the courage to chase them. So I got a bright perspective about the future for my father, and a lot of courage for my mother. And the last 20 years, I've been initiating several business campaigns or social activities between Jews and Arabs, Israelis and Palestine, within Israel, in the Palestine territories, in Jordan and in Egypt. And I know that we can build a shared future. And the amount of the condolence and solidarity I received from October the 7th, from my Palestinian friend and colleagues, and from the Arab world, was so immense and powerful. And I keep doing since then I've been doing so many one-on-one or public Zoom with Palestinian peace activists. And I learned few more lessons from them. Many of them from an activist named Hamze Awaude. I highly recommend you to invite him.
And I know he's in Hands of Peace and I'm in Kids for Peace, so we work in similar organizations.
So what I learned from Hamze, and I'm using his words, I'm willing to forgive about the past, I'm willing to forgive about the future, but I won't forget myself and all the other if we won't make a better future. And what Hamze also said, that hope is not something you found or something that someone else will give you. It's something we need to create. And ever since I heard those words, when people ask me, Maoz, what are you doing? I tell them, I create hope. And then they ask me, how do you create hope? I'm telling them, I'm meeting other people, other organizations that create hope, like Seeds of Peace, like Ends of Peace, like Yad Beyad, shared educational communities with Arabs and Israelis within Israel, 6 communities, and I made a community in Haifa last week. It started 12 years ago with 12 families, Jews and Arabs, and now there are 300 families from infant to 8th grade. And they are telling, I came here because you are creating hope, and I want to learn from you how to create hope. And I told them, think there will be not just 300 families, there will be 3,000 families here in Haifa. And not only 6 Yad Beyad, hand-in-hand community, there will be 60. If we'll achieve that, we're going to achieve peace.
I just want to add for our listeners that are not familiar, in Israel, schools are not mixed. So if you're Jewish, Haredi, you have a certain school. If you're a religious Zionist, you have a certain school. If you're secular, you have a certain school. And if you're Arab, you have a certain school. We don't have what they have in Australia, which we call public schools or state schools. They don't exist here. And so Yad B'Yad is a unique school system that they have several schools across the country, in Haifa, in Jerusalem, and several other places where people of all denominations, religious, secular, Jewish, Christian, Muslim, Arab, can learn together. And Yad B'Yad literally means hand in hand. And what they're trying to do is, give people from a very young age this exposure of being together and learning together. And I think that's why those schools are so amazing in giving hope. But I just want to go back to something you said about forgiveness. Hannah and I were both watching the trial in The Hague last week. And at the moment, there hasn't been a trial of Hamas as well. But I'm trying to imagine if there is ever a trial of Hamas, and specifically the men who fired the rocket that killed your parents, and if they invite you to the court to give testimony about the impact of what happened on October 7th, and you could stand before those men in front of the court, what would you say to them?
Wow. First, I do think I wish it will happen in an international court. Okay? I wish it will happen. And then I would let the court rule by the law, the international law. I think forgiveness is one of the most honorable values, and not because I'm practicing it, human can use. Unlike revenge is very human, but it's also said in the Bible that revenge should be in the hand of God. So even though we have the urge to revenge, we should fight against this urge and leave the revenge to God. And we need to practice much more the value of forgiveness and reconciliation. So I would forgive him if he would say that he won't do it again, and he will educate and live his life, will choose a different path for his life, a path for peace and reconciliation, I would forgive him.
And what would you do if he said, I want to do it again. I want to do another October 7th. I want to keep fighting until I liberate Palestine. What would you say?
First, I would say then he should stay in prison. That's first thing, because we don't want more innocent people to be victims. And this is exactly the question I've been dealing myself and with others. Like, this is why it was so important for me to be here with you, because we must talk about those topics and not leave others. And what I also learned, and this is something I've been working with in the last few years, about narratives. So if Itai, you're a Palestinian, and me, I'm Israeli, and we would look into the past, from the Bible and the Quran to 48 or the Nakba, to all the wars that we've been gone through since the foundation of Israel, we would see a completely different past. We would see a completely different past, even if we look on the same history, the same timeline, we'll see a different past. If we look into the present, including October the 7th, we would see a different present. So a Palestinian would see a different present of what happened on October 7th. And of course, myself, I would see my narrative, a tragic narrative. But if we would look into the future, and this I've been practicing it with Hamze and with Aziz and with Ahmed Fouad El-Khatib, who is from Gaza, and we look into the future and we see the same future. And this is amazing. We see the same future, a future that is based on equality, that is based on security for all, that is based on reconciliation, on justice. You shall not revenge. You shall respect your enemy. And then we can imagine, and this is where I am now, and we should all try to be there. We should imagine a shared future for Palestinian and Israelis between the river to the sea. And if we'll have this project of the future and we'll start sketch it and plan it, and we know this is our destination. And this is what I'm doing nowadays, and I'm working very hard. My schedule is so tight. What I'm doing nowadays, I'm start building a strategy. I'm start making a plan. Without a plan, it's not going to happen. So I'm making a plan that will be ready in 6 months from now, and then we'll execute it. And my goal and my timeline is that in 4 to 6 years from now, we're going to make peace.
Can you tell us more about the plan? In what way? What's going to happen? Will Hamas be involved? How is it going to happen?
I don't know. This we need to sit and build it. Everything is on the table, but I want to tell you why I see it in 4 to 6 years and not one day or in a generation. Because if we were sitting here on late October 73, after the most horrible war till now between Egypt and Israel and Syria and Jordan, and I would tell you that there's going to be a peace agreement between Egypt and Israel. And Egypt were the worst enemy of Israel, by far stronger than Hamas, by far. And all Israelis believed that Egypt want to erase Israel. Erase it physically, erase it for the map, to erase the Jewish existence between the river to the sea. And I will tell you, we're going to sign a peace agreement. You would say, Maoz, you are so naive. It's nice. You are just lost your parents, so through your personal tragedy. This is what you think, but it's not realistic. So this is exactly the historical opportunity we're facing now. So we need to. How do you make a plan? My role in making the plan is to imagine. I'm the dreamer. But I know after founding a initiative that was thought that would never be able to survive financially or physically in Nazareth and Old Abraham and others, now I need to find partners that will help me first write the plan and then execute it. And this is what I'm doing now. I'm reaching out for partners, Israelis, Palestinian, international community. We're going to sit together, literally sit together, and we'll write a plan. And I will give my role. I will do my role as the visionary, but others will give their role as political strategy or diplomatic experts or reconciliation and peace resolution professional. So and public opinion, of course, and education and security. So there's going to be a book. There's going to be a book, the Hamadrich HaShalem LeShalom.
The complete guide to peace. Yeah.
Complete guide for peace, and then we'll execute it.
I want to ask you on that topic about practical solutions. I want to give you mine, and I want you to tell me what you think. And it's a conversation I've been having with Itai and lots of people, because I'm very much like you. I'm the dreamer. I've had so many people tell me that's, your peace talk sounds really lovely, but you're really naive and you're young and you need to just be quiet because the army is doing their job. And I have been saying to them, look, I understand that Hamas is a threat. I understand that they are continuously throwing rockets onto Israel. They don't care about their own citizens. I understand. But I don't think that bombing an entire strip is going to get rid of Hamas. I've heard you say it before, so I know you agree that Hamas is an ideology. It's never going to just be demolished. And I look at places like South Africa, where there was apartheid and there was violent resistance groups then as well. But once apartheid ended and Nelson Mandela took over, lots of the whites thought, oh my God, they're going to do the same to us, what we did to them. And so many white people left. But we saw that didn't happen. And the violent resistant groups, they were still around, they were still there, but they just didn't have the support of the people because the people said, we don't need this resistance anymore. We actually have our freedom now. We don't need to fight. And so even though the resistance groups still existed, they weren't supported. So my theory, and I want your opinion on this, Maoz, is if we supported Palestinians to have their own freedom, their own autonomy, the Palestinian people would not support Hamas anymore. If Hamas came to them and said, hey, we're going to use your house to store weapons in, the people would say, no, we're not going to let you do that because we see another way. The problem is that now, of course, people are supporting Hamas because they're the only people who are fighting for them. Israel doesn't care about giving them peace, so of course they're supported. But if we create hope, like you said, of a safety and freedom, then there would be no need to support a violent resistance group. What do you think about my plan?
It's a great plan. It's exactly what I think. And again, I will start with if we leave to the army to do, if we think that the army knows what to do and how to do it, we are the fullest people on earth. The fullest. Last year, the security budget of Israel was the highest ever. The highest ever. Okay? And it was the biggest loss we ever had since the Holocaust. It's an historical loss in human life. So, and we were doing exactly what the army told us. So we must also, if you look into the future through a scope of a rifle, you would see an enemy. But if you look, and on my window home in Binyamina, I have an orchard of olives. So when I look through the orchard of olives, I see peace. And if we are receiving military aid in amount of nearly $4 billion a year from the US, what do we think will happen with this military aid? Of course, war will happen. But if we'll get shared society initiative aid, reconciliation aid, peace aid, build bridges and not walls, then we'll have peace. So for me, it's so obvious, and the same as it to you. And we should be. It's great that we are naive. It's great. And also, what I'm saying now, all businessmen and entrepreneurs, I'm doing many of those talks with Israeli friends and people, and even not Israelis, and all business people and entrepreneurs must believe it, otherwise they won't invest. Okay, so they're investing because they believe the future will be a better future. So there are many segments and industries or sectors that it's easier to convince them in a better future because they must believe in a better future. This is in their nature, and we need to be naive. And so what my friends, my business friend, Israeli business friend and entrepreneur said me after speaking with him for an hour and a half, and he was also investigating me. He told me he was investigating me and like challenging all my beliefs.
So it sounds like the word you're thinking of is interrogating.
It was on a very pleasant atmosphere.
Is that what we're doing?
No.
Good.
After an hour and a half, he told me, Maoz, now I know what you are. You are a naive person with a plan. And those are the people, forgive me for not being modest, but naive with a plan, they are the people who change the world.
Maoz, I want to be a part of your plan. I want to be part of that.
You are. So you already are by sharing and amplifying my voice.
Good.
Because we want as many people as possible to believe that the future is going to be a better one, and we are the one that's going to make it. We are not going to wait for the Messiah or for our leadership or to no one.
Yeah.
We are going to make it. Don't choose a side. What I'm telling everyone I speak to, don't choose a side. Israel or Palestine. Choose humanity.
That is so beautiful. And I want to end on that point, your point of don't choose sides, choose humanity, because at the moment it feels like the world is very much choosing sides. We've seen a lot of the pro-Israel rallies. We've seen lots of massive, big pro-Palestine rallies. And I think both these sides would say we are choosing humanity. We are marching for peace. But that peace looks very different still at the moment for both of these sides. And what Itai and I have both been saying is we wish that there were more rallies going on that had more people together in this, mission for humanity.
I think your brother Inon is actually doing this vigil for peace where they have, together with Mira Awad, and they have Jews and Arabs and Palestinians and Israelis speaking together. And I think London's the only place in the world where that has happened, and that's incredible.
Yeah. So next week they are going to do it through the entire UK. And this I will tell your Palestinian friend, let's do a shared vigil. Let's do a shared event for pro-humanity.
And what are the messages or the speeches that I would hear at such a rally?
First, I can send you later. So it's empathy, reconciliation, the shared, imagining the shared future, and show how you can host a Palestinian peace activist and be his friend, and you can go to beer or to a breakfast or whatever, or to holiday together. And so we can do it on a personal, people-to-people level, we should be able to do it on a national level. But we need to convince ourselves and then others that it's possible and achievable. And of course it is. Because if you look in Europe, how many victims were in wars in the 19th century between France and Germany? And now there is
many
millions,
yes.
more.
Yeah.
So it's possible and it's achievable. And I would love to contact you with my brother in London, and they have a manual for shared vigils and events. So what the message should be? Yes. So let's.
Yeah. And we'll post the link also in our show notes for anyone around the world who's listening to this podcast that wants to do a vigil for peace. No flags, not pro-Israel, not pro-Palestine, just pro-humanity, pro-empathy, because I think that's such a powerful model for the future, and it's something Hannah and I deeply believe in.
So to create the space for humanity, and this is something that we can do. We can do and initiate those events, and it can start in a private house, with 10 people. And I would love even to come and speak to you,
I would love that,
through Zoom to those 10 people, and maybe also tomorrow we are doing a Zoom to Palestinian peace activists, to Israeli peace activists, and we are already trained. It's a language and a feeling that you need to be trained on, because sometimes really tough topics or emotion rise. So to give the right and accepting answer to some of those questions is something that you need to be trained. And like I shared with you, I was trained all my life for October the 7th. So for me now it's natural.
And that group that you're speaking to tomorrow, Eretz Lekulam, A Land for All, is really powerful in presenting, I think, an excellent vision of how to share this land and what can be done with borders and refugees and water and all the questions that we get all the time through our email. So I would also really encourage people to look at the A Land for All website as a way forward, and also to watch their many Zooms, both in English and in Hebrew, where people that have really exercised the muscle of empathy are modeling that for people around the world, because they're the voices that sadly are so rarely heard from Israel and Palestine. So I guess on behalf of both Hannah and I, we really wanted to thank you so much for being here and for opening your heart. We're all doing heart emojis now to each other on the Zoom that our listeners can't see, but we're sending you huge hugs and hamon toda.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Toda.